Welcome friends, my name is Mike, I'm That Helpful Dad, and today we're going to talk about the 13 most famous verses from the book of Revelation. Now, I imagine if you're watching this video, you're very interested in the book of Revelation, it's just like me. You know, I've written multiple books about the topic, I've also have a website kind of devoted to it, and I'm pleased to be able to share this topic with you. You know, no study of the book of Revelations would be complete without diving into the most famous verses from the text. Now, I've got multiple articles, as I said, about the book of Revelation in a broader sense, and we can talk about those at another time. For example, the meaning of the book, the key symbols and characters, even the debate about who even really wrote the book of Revelations. Was it the Apostle John or somebody else? But the focus today is on the actual verses from this legendary book. I'm going to share with you some images as well as the verses themselves. I've picked out 13 of my favorite. They're pretty famous verses. I'm sure you're going to recognize them if you've read the book. But you may not agree, and if you have a different view about some of the verses that you think should be included as the most popular, by all means, please let me know. Share your comments in the comments below. And of course, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to our channel if you like videos like this. And of course, if you like this particular video, please share it with your friends and give it a thumbs up. But without further ado, I'm going to take myself off the webcam and put the focus on the book of Revelations. Give me just a moment. Okay, so we're going to get started with verse number 1. With the first verse that I think is one of the most famous ones. And that, of course, is Revelations 1, verses 1 and 2. And it goes as follows. And what we're looking at here is Gustave Doré's picture of John of Patmos. And of course, we associate John as John the Apostle, the beloved apostle of Jesus. But there are some arguments whether that actually is the case, but that's again a different topic. Today we want to talk about this actual verse. So Revelations 1, verse 1 and 2, I'd love to read it to you. This book is the record of the events that Jesus Christ revealed. God gave him this revelation in order to show his servants what must happen very soon. And Christ made these things known to his servant John by sending his angel to him. And John has told all that he has seen. Now, I picked this out as one of the most famous verses because it identifies the character named John as the person who wrote the book of Revelation. And I like to think that's the Apostle John, although you may or may not agree. And again, we have a different topic on that for another day. But that is verse number 1. Revelation 1, verse 1 and 2. Let's move on to the second one, shall we? I love this one here. Such a beautiful one. Revelation 1:8. It goes as follows. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. Beautiful picture here from a church. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact church this is taken from. If you do, please let me know in the comments. It's such a gorgeous picture. But Revelation chapter 1, verse 8. Let's move on to our third verse. It is Revelations 3:20. It goes as follows. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me. This is a beautiful picture from William Holman Hunt, somewhere around the 1850s, and it's called Christ Knocking at the Door. Very famous picture. And that's our third verse. Let's move on here. This one, not quite as pleasant as you'll see in a moment. It's another picture from Gustave Doré. It's the Pale Rider of Death, and it is Revelation 6:8. It goes as follows. I looked, and there before me was the pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given a power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Boy, that is a powerful verse, extremely famous verse, and obviously an extremely famous image as well, too. They don't get any easier from here. Let's move on to the next one. And that is from the same chapter, Revelation 6, but it's verse number 12. And it goes as follows. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair, and the whole moon turned blood red. This is a picture, actually. Unfortunately, I don't know who took the picture, but it is of one of the recent blood moons that we've had. One must wonder, if we're seeing more blood moons, are we closer to the events of the book of Revelation coming true? You know, that's an interesting question, and I want to let you know that the information that you're seeing today is actually from my website. Let me pull it up here for you. And it is called The Last Temptation of John. And we're specifically reading this particular article, but we have others. There's also a book associated with the topic, actually a trilogy of books associated with the topic of the book of Revelation. And I'm going to talk to you about those at the end of this particular story, because those are free books that I've published that you can read. And if you are fascinated by this topic, you may be interested in those books. But stay tuned for the end when we talk about that. Meanwhile, let's get back to our story here and our next famous verse. And I have that listed as follows. Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, and it goes as follows. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. What a beautiful image that is as we contemplate the return of Jesus and contemplate, the chosen ones being able to worship him like that. Obviously, extremely famous verse. Again, Revelation 7:9. Next one, not quite as friendly here. It is Revelation 9, verse 11. And it is as follows. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew was Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, which is the destroyer. We're looking at a picture here from John Bunyan's Christian versus Abaddon, somewhere around the 1850s. It is, not a very fun image if you're that Christian fighting him, but certainly a very famous verse. Do you agree with the verses so far that I've picked out? Is there any between chapters 1 and 9 that you haven't seen here that you think should be included on the list? By all means, please put that in the comments so that we can all kind of enjoy this topic together. Next image and probably verse is one of my most famous. Now again, my name is Michael, and so you probably won't be surprised why, but this is Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 to 9. And we are looking at Luca Giordano's very famous painting, The Fall of the Rebel Angels, featuring Archangel Michael, my patron saint, fighting against Lucifer and his minions. And the Revelation verse 7-9 goes as follows. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and the angels with him. Man, that is a powerful, action-oriented verse there, and again, one of my favorites. Let's go to the next one. Now, the image here is going to be interesting. You've probably seen it. It's getting a lot of play on the internet right now. It's maybe one of the most famous verses as well, too. This is Revelation 13, verses 1 and 2. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head was a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of the lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, and his throne, and his great authority. Now, this verse is extremely famous because it not only talks about the beast, but it talks about multiple beasts, beast of the land, beast of the sea, and is obviously related to the topic of the Antichrist. Now again, we have that particular topic is one of our tantalizing tidbit articles on our website, and let me see if I can pull it up real quick and show it to you. And let's see if we can get over here. Let's take this off and get back to our capture here. It's an article about who is the Antichrist and going back over 2,000 years and kind of working through that topic. So if that's of interest to you, make sure you check that out. Meanwhile, let's get back to our story. Okay, so we've done verse number 13. our chapter number 13, verses 1 and 2, we're going to stay in that same chapter here and get to the next verse, and that is as follows. Another famous one here. I'm sure you'll recognize it as soon as I pull it up. I don't have to even read the verse, and I know you're going to know what it is. Revelation 13, verse 16 through 18. The beast also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. Now this calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and that number is 666. Surely you know that verse, and clearly one of the more famous of all time from the book of Revelation. Again, I point you back to our website if you want to delve into that topic a little bit more and try to figure out who the Antichrist is. And again, I also will talk to you about the book that I've written about this very topic, where the Antichrist kind of comes to life. Let's take a look at the next verse, though. We're coming down to the end here. We only have 3 left in our 13 most famous verses from the book of Revelation. And we are now on chapter 14. And that is chapter 14, verse number 1. A much more friendly verse. It goes as follows. Then I looked, and there before me was the Lamb, standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. This is an interesting verse because of the specific reference to the 144,000. You probably know Tim LaHaye's series, the Left Behind series, or maybe you've seen some of the recent shows that have come out on the internet or on TV. Like I think there was actually one called, was it Left Behind or something else? But in any case, this concept of the 144,000 who will be raptured before having to experience all the negatives that really occur towards the end of the book of Revelation is an interesting concept. In my book, actually, I wrote about what I call the book of life, which has the names of the 144,000, and it kind of gets whittled down to that over time. Again, if you're interested in that, I'll talk to you about the book in just a moment here. It is a completely free book, and it is one I just enjoy sharing because I love the topic so much. But let's move on to our next verse, and that is a not-so-friendly verse. Revelation 20, verses 12 through 15, and it is like this. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire, which is the second death. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into that lake of fire. Now that is not very fun to contemplate. We hope that we are written in the book of life, right? We certainly don't want to be in the lake of fire, but for the purposes of our discussion today, this is an extremely famous verse and very applicable. So, the final verse, we're down to that, and then I will also tell you about some of the other articles I've written about the book of Revelation and also about that book I mentioned. But the last verse, number 13, of which I think are the 13 most famous, is here. A very friendly verse. It is Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. Let's read it together. And then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard in a loud voice from the throne saying, Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Man, that is pretty darn awesome, right? We look forward to that occurring and being a part of that, obviously, if you believe this is very important to you. So, there you have it, the 13 most famous verses, in my opinion, from the book of Revelation. Did you agree with those, or did you disagree? If there's one that I missed, please put it in the comments below. And again, if you're interested in this topic, a few more things I'll share with you. as I mentioned to you, we do have a couple other articles, actually multiple articles, but ones that are relevant to our discussion today is who really wrote the book of Revelation, Apostle John or a different John, and I'll make a video about that for you as well too. There is, of course, also the question of, is the John the Apostle still alive? And again, you may or may not be familiar with that question, but it is out there on the internet, and it's certainly an interesting discussion. In fact, I've been so fascinated by that particular topic that's what triggered me to write the trilogy that I wrote about the book of Revelation. And again, you can read this completely free online. It's an interactive book, or it's a book you can download. And it's at our website, The Last Temptation of John. Book 1 is The Pawns of Prophecy. And I'd like to kind of give you the introduction here now and just kind of tease you a little bit with it. So picture this. The year is this year, the time is today, and doomsday prophets again proclaim the end of the world. Yet this time they may actually be correct. Like most people, you probably don't know that the 3 nails used to crucify Jesus Christ still exist, or that they are guarded by 3 immortals from biblical times. One of these immortals is St. John the Apostle, a prophet who continues to be tormented by revelations he cannot escape. Now, I obviously should let you know, this is a book of fiction, not something I'm suggesting necessarily is true. It's just a fictional work that allows us to explore the book of Revelation, so I want to give you that disclaimer here. So how does this story go? Well, this is the key here. As the events unfold, John learns that the as yet unknown Antichrist has just captured one of the nails of Jesus, along with John's friend, the professor, Alan Zaris. And despite this wake-up call, John remains bitter at his perceived abandonment by Jesus over 2,000 years ago, and therefore John refuses to do anything to help his friend Alan. And he leaves the task of helping to his former friend, Miriam Magdala. Meanwhile, 2 other men rise to prominence on the world stage, and they are Dr. Gaz al-Ridwan Mehboo, he's the beloved leader of the Human League, and Pope Benedict, the charismatic former head of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, while Dr. Mehboo overtly works to solve the world's problem, the Pope seemingly conspires with members of a secret society in a plot to bring down his rival. We have to wonder at what cost and why. If you want to know the answers to these questions and what happens, read this first book in the exciting trilogy, The Pawn of Prophecy. It is a book you can read completely for free on our website. And again, it is an interactive book that has videos and images, and so maybe it will be one that you enjoy. But my friends, as we conclude this particular video, I want to thank you for watching. Let me bring the webcam back up. And I want to say, if this is a topic that interests you, hopefully you'll get a chance to look at our other videos on this topic, and I would love to know what your thoughts are as well too. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.